He used my credit card to treat himself, racked up a 4-figure bill, and then ghosted me completely. Blocked me from everything. But what he didn't know, that shiny new account he was so proud of, I opened it for him. And I had full control. So I did what any heartbroken woman with a spine would do. I shut it all down. Take a minute and hear me out. If you've ever felt used, lied to, or taken for granted, this story might just hit home. And if it does, don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Reby Daniels. I'm 32 and work as a dental hygienist in St. Louis. Life was simple, steady. Then I met Ethan Cooper. He was 35, handsome, confident, and called himself an entrepreneur between gigs. He had this charm that made me forget my doubts. He talked big dreams, shared sweet words, and after a few dates, I let my guard down. It felt good to be seen, to be wanted. For 6 months, we were inseparable. Dinners, weekend trips, long phone calls. He made me feel like I was building something real. But slowly, little things started to change. He asked if I could spot him for gas. Then groceries. He once needed an Uber late at night and promised he'd pay me back tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Still, I believed him. He said he was just waiting for a client payment. I wanted to be supportive. Love means helping each other, right? Then came the weekend getaway. He forgot his wallet, so I paid for everything. Hotel, food, everything. I didn't love it, but I didn't want to make it awkward. I told myself, it's just temporary. Then he asked if I could add him to my credit card, just for a few weeks, to help him manage things better. Against my better judgment, I agreed. He seemed grateful. A few days later, he mentioned setting up a business checking account for a new project. Said it would mean a lot if I helped. So I did. I opened it for him, in his name, but under my online banking access. At the time, it felt like I was helping my partner build something. I thought we were a team. I had no idea I was being used. But that realization would come later. After the lies piled up, after the credit card bills came in, and after the man I thought I loved vanished without a word. I didn't know it then, but the same account I opened for him would become the key to everything, including my revenge. And trust me, it was just getting started. At first, it was little things. Ethan would say, "Hey babe, can you cover gas today? I'll get you back Friday." Or, "Groceries are tight this week. My client still hasn't paid me." He always had a reason, always had a soft voice and a warm smile that made it hard to say no. Ava wanted to believe him. She wanted to be the supportive girlfriend, the one who stood by him when he needed it. So she paid for gas, then groceries, then the occasional Uber when his car wasn't acting right. Each time, he promised it was just temporary. "As soon as this freelance project clears, I'll sort everything out," he'd say with a but soon never came. Then came the weekend trip. It was supposed to be their little escape, a short getaway to clear their minds and enjoy each other's company. But as they checked into the hotel, Ethan patted his pockets and looked surprised. "Babe, I think I left my wallet at home." Ava blinked. "Seriously?" He nodded, looking embarrassed. "I feel terrible. Can you just cover this? I swear I'll Venmo you later." So she did. She paid for the hotel, meals, gas, everything. That weekend alone cost her over $700. Still, she didn't want to fight. She didn't want to look like the woman who didn't trust her boyfriend, so she swallowed her doubts. A few days later, Ethan brought up the idea of being added to her credit card. "Just for a little while," he said. "It's hard juggling cash apps with all these job expenses. It'll make it easier to manage stuff. I'll be responsible, I promise." Ava had never done that for anyone, not even her ex-boyfriend of 4 years. But with Ethan, something about the way he asked made her feel guilty for hesitating. She added him. Then came the final ask. He was launching a new business, another freelance gig, something he was finally passionate about. But he needed a checking account to accept client payments and set up his merchant platform. His credit wasn't great, and he was having issues verifying his identity with the bank. He looked at Ava with those pleading eyes. "Can you help me set one up? Just this once." She agreed. Ava opened the account under his name, but used her personal banking access to manage it. It felt like a big step, a show of trust. She had no idea that trust would soon be shattered. And that shiny new account Ethan was so excited about? He didn't know she held the keys. About 3 weeks after opening the business account for Ethan, Ava started noticing strange activity. At first, it was small things, odd transfers to names she didn't recognize, payments to what looked like random vendors, and ATM withdrawals that didn't make sense. She'd check the account and see hundreds of dollars gone overnight. One morning, she saw $1,200 withdrawn in cash over the weekend. Ethan had told her he was sick at home the entire time. Her stomach dropped. When she finally gathered the courage to ask him, Ethan immediately got defensive. "Why are you spying on my account?" he snapped. "I told you I had things under control. You never trusted me in the first place." Ava tried to stay calm. "I'm not spying. I just noticed some weird charges, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay." But Ethan's tone only grew colder. This is exactly why things don't work. You always assume the worst. Maybe I wouldn't feel so smothered if you stopped acting like my mother. Ava froze. For a moment, she wondered if he was right. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe she was being paranoid. After all, he'd said the money was for business, vendors, marketing, supplies. But something didn't sit right. The doubts started creeping in more and more each day. Ethan was becoming distant, moody, and often unreachable for hours. He'd tell her he was working late with clients, stuck in meetings, or helping a friend move across town. She wanted to believe him, but the knot in her stomach kept tightening. Then, one evening, Ava got a call from her credit card company. "Hi, Ms. Daniels, we're calling to verify a few unusual charges," the rep said. "Were you recently in Chicago?" Ava blinked. "Chicago? No, I'm in St. Louis." "Well, there's a $500 purchase at a luxury sneaker store, 2 hotel charges, and a bill from a rooftop lounge, all made yesterday." Ava's heart started racing. Ethan had told her he was in Atlanta this weekend, helping his cousin with some tech startup thing. He'd even sent her a blurry photo of a coffee cup with ATL written on the lid. Now everything made sense. The lies, the missing money, the cold attitude. He wasn't busy. He wasn't overwhelmed. He was living it up on her dime. She hung up the call and sat in silence. Her hands were shaking. Her heart wasn't just broken, it was embarrassed. She had trusted someone who used her, lied to her, and then made her feel like the problem. But in that moment, something shifted. The fog began to clear. And Ava realized this wasn't love. This was theft, with a smile. And while Ethan thought he'd gotten away with it, he had forgotten one very important detail. That account he was draining? She still had the power to shut it all down. Ava's fingers trembled as she dialed Ethan's number. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. She sent him a short, direct text. "We need to talk. Call me now." No response. Minutes passed. Then hours. Then a full day. Silence. She tried messaging him on social media, only to realize she couldn't even find his profile. Her heart sank. She opened her email and typed a message, desperate for a reply. It bounced back. Undeliverable. Blocked. Panic turned into disbelief. She grabbed the iPad she'd loaned him weeks ago, the one she'd signed into with her Apple ID, and found it had been wiped clean. Signed out. Gone. Just like Ethan, her body felt heavy as she sat on the edge of her bed. The man she'd shared her life with for 6 months, the one who had kissed her forehead and whispered promises of forever, had ghosted her. Completely. Without a single word. She checked her credit card account. The damage was worse than she thought. Over $8,000 in charges, hotels, restaurants, electronics, clothes. Not a single dollar spent on something he had once promised to build. Just luxury for him. Ava's chest ached with embarrassment and betrayal. How could she have fallen for it? She had ignored the signs, brushed off the red flags, and believed his excuses because she wanted it to be real. But then, in her haze of heartbreak, she remembered something. The business checking account. The one he proudly bragged about to friends. The one where all his freelance payments were being deposited. The one she had helped set up for him, under her bank's system, using her access. She sat upright. Her sadness began to twist into something else. Focus. She opened her laptop, logged into her online banking, and clicked into the account. There it was. Still active. Still busy. Money was coming in regularly. $200 here, $400 there. Transfers to apps. Withdrawals. His digital paper trail was alive and well, and it was all under her administrative control. Ava leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. Her tears had dried. Her pain hadn't vanished, but it had transformed. She wasn't helpless. Not anymore. Ethan may have disappeared with her money and trust, but he made one crucial mistake. He thought he'd cut her off completely. He forgot she still had the keys to the one thing he truly cared about, his money. And she was just getting started. Ava sat in her living room, staring at the open laptop. Her apartment was quiet, the kind of silence that usually felt peaceful. But tonight, it felt loud. Mocking. She had spent days feeling sick with betrayal, hurt by how easily Ethan had vanished and left her to pick up the pieces. But now, the ache in her chest had cooled. In its place was something sharper. Determination. She clicked through the business account dashboard. The activity was steady. Regular deposits from freelance gigs, transfers to 2 different payment apps, and small but frequent ATM withdrawals. Ethan hadn't even paused. While she was crying herself to sleep, he was out there spending like nothing had happened. She started taking screenshots. Every single transaction. She opened an Excel file and began logging the details, dates, amounts, recipient. It was tedious work, but it gave her a sense of control she hadn't felt in. She was building her case, piece by piece. The more she dug, the clearer it became. Ethan wasn't just careless, he was calculated. He had made sure everything looked legit on the surface. But there were red flags all over. Duplicate payments. sketchy merchant names, a $700 consulting fee sent to a name she didn't recognize. She picked up the phone and called her friend Jenna, who worked at a local law firm. Ava explained everything, how she'd opened the business account for Ethan using her bank's system, how her name wasn't on the account, but the access came through her own online banking, and how she still had full control. Jenna listened carefully, then said, "You're in a very unique position. The account's under his name, but technically it falls under your online banking authority. It's like giving someone keys to a house you still own. If anything goes wrong, you can change the locks." That was all Ava needed to hear. She closed her laptop and sat back, heart pounding, not from fear anymore, but from clarity. She'd been used, lied to, discarded. But Ethan underestimated her. He thought she'd sit in silence and cry over him while he cashed in. He thought walking away would leave her powerless. He was wrong. She wasn't the broken girl he left behind. She was the one holding the keys to his shiny new life. And now she was done crying. It was time to shut the door and make sure it stayed locked behind him. Ava logged into the business checking account one last time, her fingers steady on the keyboard. The balance stared back at her, just over $3,000. She took a deep breath, then transferred every last cent into a secure holding account in her name, one that wasn't connected to anything Ethan could access. She wasn't stealing it. She was reclaiming what he had taken from her trust, her money, her peace of mind. Next, she went into the settings and removed all linked payment apps. Both were listed under Ethan's email addresses. She reported the recent transactions as suspicious, detailing how the account was opened under her banking platform and how she had since been locked out of communication. The merchant platforms acknowledged her reports and flagged the activity for review. That meant Ethan would start receiving payment issues very soon, and Ava smiled quietly at the thought. She wasn't done yet. Ava enabled a hard freeze on the account. No withdrawals, no deposits, no transfers. Nothing could move in or out unless she personally approved it. She then scheduled the account for permanent closure in 30 days, the bank's standard waiting period. Just enough time for Ethan to notice something was wrong, and too late for him to fix it. She thought about how careful she used to be, how she once debated for hours before sharing a Netflix password. And yet here she was, cleaning up the mess of a man she let into her heart and her finances. Never again. The screen confirmed. Your account is scheduled to close on 30 days from now. Ava sat back in her chair, the weight lifting from her shoulders slowly. She could almost picture Ethan's reaction. The surprise, the panic, the confusion as payments bounced, apps stopped working, and the money vanished. He'd try to charm someone at the bank, try to call her from a new number, try anything to get back what he thought was his. But this time, she wasn't the same woman he left behind. Ava closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling for a moment. It wasn't revenge for the sake of being petty. It was about closure, about reminding herself that she wasn't powerless. That even when someone tries to turn your love into a weakness, you can still take your strength back. And she just had. 2 weeks after shutting down the account, Ava's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Hey babe, finally got a new phone. Lost the old one. Weird stuff happening with the bank though. Can you check it for me? Love you, Red Heart." She stared at the message for a long minute. No apology, no explanation. Just a casual "hey babe," like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't ghosted her. Like he hadn't drained her savings and left her scrambling to pay off debt he'd created. Ava didn't reply. Instead, she opened her laptop. She'd already been preparing for this moment. In a folder labeled Receipts, she'd saved everything. Screenshots, bank statements, flagged charges, and the full transaction history from her credit card and the business account. Every Uber ride, hotel stay, sketchy vendor transfer, and ATM withdrawal, down to the penny. She compiled it all into a neatly organized PDF. The cover page was the cherry on top. To Ethan Cooper, "I may have trusted you with my heart, but you forgot who you gave the bank to. Attached are all the charges you made using my card and the account I controlled. You're lucky I didn't press charges. Don't contact me again." She attached the file and sent it back in a single message. No greeting, no explanation, no drama. Then she blocked the number. She didn't need to see the typing bubbles. She didn't want to hear the excuses. She didn't care if he was panicking or angry or suddenly remembered how much he cared. This wasn't about him anymore. This was Ava choosing herself, her peace, her power. For the next few days, she noticed missed calls from other unknown numbers. Some were probably Ethan. Others might have been his friends or burner line. But Ava didn't pick up. She'd changed her passwords, removed her name from every shared service, and filed formal disputes on the $8,000 of credit card charges. Her lawyer friend helped draft a letter of intent, just in case Ethan tried to cause more trouble. She even started seeing a financial coach to rebuild her credit and regain control. It wasn't easy. She still felt the sting of betrayal sometimes, especially at night when her thoughts were loud. But every time she doubted herself, she remembered that moment, when she clicked send on the PDF. She didn't need revenge that screamed, just one that spoke clearly, confidently, and left no room for him to twist the story. Ethan tried to crawl back into her life. Ava shut the door and bolted it. 2 days after Ethan's pathetic attempt to crawl back, Ava heard a firm knock at her front door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Peeking through the peephole, she saw a tall man in his 30s, dressed in a wrinkled blazer and jeans, holding a folder in one hand and glaring at the door like it owed him money. She opened it halfway, the chain still latched. "You Ava?" he asked, voice low and sharp. "Yes. Who are you?" "Jason. I'm Ethan's business partner, silent partner, technically. Or I was, until you froze the account and made my rent bounce." Ava blinked. "Business partner? I want to know what gives you the right to touch our money. You think this is a joke? That account was our working capital." Ava took a slow breath, keeping her tone steady. "The account was opened by me, under my banking authority. Ethan lied, used me, and left me with thousands in debt. Whatever losses you're experiencing are between you and him." Jason's jaw clenched. "Don't play cute. I put real money into that venture." She reached behind the door, pulled out a business card, and slid it through the gap. "This is my lawyer's contact info. If you have a problem, take it up with them." Jason stared at the card, then back at her. "You really don't care, do you?" Ava met his gaze. "I care enough to protect what's mine. But no, I don't care about Ethan's lies anymore." He scoffed, stuffed the card in his pocket, and turned to leave. As Ava shut the door and locked it, her hands trembled just a little. The visit had caught her off guard. His tone, the pressure, the realization that Ethan wasn't just playing games with her, but with other people's lives too. She stood there in the quiet for a moment, listening to her own breath. But instead of panic, she felt something else rising. Control. No more ghosting. No more guessing. She'd stood her ground. Calm. Clear. Unshaken. Jason might have thought she was easy to scare. But Ava wasn't the same woman who paid for someone else's hotel stay without asking questions. She had learned. She had built a boundary and backed it with action. And as she walked back to her desk, past the envelope of bank papers and printed screenshots, she smiled faintly. She didn't just shut down a scam. She shut the door on a whole chapter of her life. Ava sat at her kitchen table, the morning sun filtering through the blinds, as she stared at the pair of scissors in her. Her credit card, the same one Ethan had drained, lay on the table in front of her. One sharp cut through the middle, and it was done. She exhaled, like she'd just let go of a weight she didn't realize she'd been holding. She'd spent the last few days on the phone with her bank's fraud department, going transaction by transaction, explaining the charges she never authorized. They listened carefully, asked for documentation. Thankfully, Ava had it all. Every receipt, every screenshot, every cent Ethan had spent behind her back. It was exhausting, mentally and emotionally, but Ava showed up for herself this time. She closed the account completely, opened a new one, and set every security alert possible. Then she made a promise. No more shared access. Not for anyone. Her lawyer friend, Melissa, met her for coffee that same week. Ava explained everything. What Ethan did, how he disappeared, how his so-called partner showed up demanding answers. Melissa listened, took notes, and told her, "You have a solid case for small claims court. You can't undo the emotional damage, but you can hit back legally." So they got to work, filing the paperwork, naming Ethan, attaching the evidence. It wouldn't erase the pain, but it gave Ava something she hadn't felt in weeks: power. And then came something even more satisfying. A local private fraud registry, a confidential resource shared between small banks and credit unions in her city, accepted her submission. She uploaded his name, details of the scam, and red flags to look out for. It was anonymous, quiet, but effective. Ethan might ghost her, but his digital footprints wouldn't disappear so easily. At night, Ava still thought about him sometimes. Not the con artist he turned out to be, but the version he sold her at the start. The caring boyfriend, the man who said he was building a future, the one who kissed her forehead like she mattered. That man never existed. But Ava? She was still here. And stronger. She started reading again. Joined a self-defense class. Went back to the things she had let slide during her relationship. Coffee with friends, long walks, music in the mornings. She had lost $8,000. But she gained something far more valuable. Her voice. Her boundaries. Her belief in her own instincts. Ethan broke her trust. But Ava rebuilt her life. Months passed, and with each one, Ava felt lighter. Her finances were finally back in order. She'd picked up extra hours at the clinic, took on a side gig writing dental care tips for a health blog, and slowly rebuilt her savings. It hadn't been easy, but it was hers. Earned honestly, without lies, without someone draining her dry behind her back. Her friends started noticing the change before she did. She smiled more, laughed louder, There was a calm in her voice now, like the chaos Ethan brought into her life had been replaced by quiet strength. When they teased her about glowing, she just shrugged. It's amazing what happens when no one's stealing from you, she'd joke. At her sister's wedding that spring, Ava met someone new, Ben. He was kind, a little shy, and actually listened when she spoke. He didn't talk over her or make big promises about big plans. He just asked if she liked dancing. And when she said yes, he took her hand and led her to the floor, no questions, no pressure. They danced until the lights dimmed and the music softened. For the first time in a long time, Ava didn't feel like she had to guard her heart, just take her time with it. She didn't tell Ben much about Ethan. Not yet. Maybe someday if it came up. But for now, she kept the lesson close to her chest and let herself enjoy the quiet beginnings of something that felt real. As for Ethan, he never reached out again. No new number. No apology. Not even a shallow excuse. Just silence. And Ava was okay with that. She didn't need closure from a man who only saw her as a bank account. She had everything she needed: legal records, frozen screenshots, and peace of mind. If he ever dared try something again, she'd be ready. But truthfully, she didn't expect to hear from him. The account was closed. The payment stopped. The damage reversed. And Ethan? He was gone. Just like that old account. And Ava? She wasn't bitter anymore. She was wiser, stronger, and absolutely done apologizing for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. She had learned to take control, not just of her money, but of her life. And in doing so, she found something Ethan could never give her: herself. What's your take? Did Ethan get what he deserved, or do you think Ava went too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear them. And if these kinds of stories speak to you, make sure to subscribe and tap that bell so you're always the first to catch the next one.